Welcome dear audience and students. Here I am Dr. Amjad Ali. In this video we will learn about the measurement scales of variable. Before moving toward the detailed discussion about the measurement scales of variable, let me give you some definitions of the variable. A variable is anything that can take on differing or varying values. The values can differ at a various times for the same object or person, or at the same time for different objects or persons. Like we have here the examples of the variable like production unit, absentees and motivation. These three indicators changes over time at the same time. So these indicators are known as variable. Types of the variable: there are a number of types of variables, but here we have five main types of the variable. The first one is the dependent variable, is also known as criterion variable. Independent variable is also known as predictor variable, moderating variable, mediating variable, and the last one is the controlled variable. Okay, there are some terminologies which are used for the independent and dependent variable in empirical and theoretical literature. In the literature, the term dependent variable and explanatory variable are described variously. A representative list here, we can say that in dependent variable and independent variable, we can call the dependent variable as an explained variable. Independent variable is as explanatory variable. We know the dependent variable as a predictant variable and independent variable as a predictor variable. Dependent variable is also known as response variable, and independent variable is also known as stimulus variable. Dependent variable is also called endogenous variable, and independent variable is also called exogenous variable. And dependent variable is also known as outcome variable, and independent variable is also known as covariate variable. And the last one is the dependent variable is also known as controlled variable, and independent variable is also known as control variable. These all different notations or terminologies can be used in different econometrics as well as in applied research books. Okay, dependent variable. Let me give the detailed explanation about the dependent variable. The dependent variable is the primary interest to the researcher. A researcher's main goal is to understand and describe the dependent variable, or to explain its variability or predict it. In other words, it is the main variable that lends itself for the investigation as a viable factor. Through the analysis of the dependent variable, it is possible to find answer or solution to the problem. For this purpose, the researcher will be interested in quantifying and measuring the dependent variable as well as other variables that influence this variable. Okay, for example, a manager is concerned to the sales of a new product introduced after test marketing it do not meet with his expectation. The dependent variable here is sale. Independent variable or explanatory variable, it is generally conjectured that an independent variable is one that influences the dependent variable in either a positive or negative way. That is, when the independent variable is present, the dependent variable is also present, and with each unit of increase in the independent variable, there must be an increase or decrease in the dependent variable. In other words, the variation in the dependent variable is accounted for by the independent variable to establish a change in the independent variable causes a change in the dependent variable. There are some conditions which are required for finding the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. There are four main conditions should be met for the relationship between the independent and dependent variables. The first one, the independent and dependent variable should co-vary. Keep it in mind, independent and dependent variable should move altogether, either increasing or decreasing. In other words, a change in the dependent variable should be associated with a change in the independent variable. Second, the independent variable should precede the dependent variable. In other words, there must be a time sequence in which the two occur. The cause must occur before the effect. Number third, no other factors should be possible cause of the change in the dependent variable, and the researchers should control for the effects of the other variables. So simply we can say that there is one-to-one relationship between the two variables, that is dependent variable and independent variable. Fourth, a logical explanation is mean that there must be a theoretical link between the two. It is here we can say that it is needed that it must explain why the independent variable affect the dependent variable. So there must be a theory behind the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. If there is no theory, so there is no logic behind finding the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. Okay, moderating variable. Let's give the explanation of the moderating variable. The term moderating variable refers to a variable that can strengthen, diminish, negate, or otherwise alter the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. Moderating variable can also change the direction of the relationship. A moderating variable can either be categorical or continue, and it is used exclusively in quantitative research rather than a qualitative research. The moderating variable is one that has a strong contingent effect on the independent variable or dependent variable relationship. That is, the presence of a third variable modify the original relationship between the independent and dependent variable. Here we have an example that we have the dependent variable here, organizational behavior, and we have an independent variable, worker diversity. Here we have a moderating variable, managerial expertise. Here worker diversity directly affect the dependent variable, and here we have a moderating effect is also affecting our dependent variable, that is managerial expertise. Mediating variable. A mediating variable is one that surfaces between the time the dependent variables start operating to influence the dependent variable and the time their impact is felt on it. There is thus a temporal quality or time dimension to the mediating variable. In other words, bringing a mediating variable into play helps us to model a process. The mediating variable surfaces as a function of the independent variable operating in any situation and helps to conceptualize and explain the influence of the independent variable on the dependent variable. Like we have an independent variable here, worker diversity, and here we have the dependent variable or explained variable, organizational behavior. Here we have a mediating variable, that is creative synergy. Worker diversity affect the creative synergy, and creative synergy then affect the organizational effectiveness. So here creative synergy is a mediating variable, and here we have a moderating variable, that is managerial expertise. So see here, this is our explanatory variable, and this is our mediating variable, and this is our explained variable, and this is our moderating variable. Control variable. A control variable is one which the researcher hold constant during an experiment. It is known as a constant variable or simply as a control. The control variable is not part of an experiment itself. It is neither the independent nor the dependent, but it is important because it can have an effect on the results. It is not the same as a control group. So somehow the control variables can be included in the model for meeting the regression analysis assumptions. Okay, the measurement scales of the variable. There are four main scales are used for the measurements of the variable. The first one is the ratio scale, interval scale, ordinal scale and nominal scale. Ratio scale. A ratio scale is a measurement scale for quantitative variable. A ratio scale allows the researcher to compare the intervals or differences. The ratio scale possesses a 0 point or a character of origin. This is a unique feature of ratio scale, that is, the temperature outside is 0 degrees Celsius. 0 degree does not mean it is not a hot or cold. It is a value here. A variable x taking two values like we have x1 and x2, the ratio of x1 and x2, or the distance of x1 minus x2 minus x1 are meaningful quantities. Also, there is a natural ordering. It may be ascending order, it may be descending order of the value along the scale. Therefore, comparison of such values like x2 is greater than or equal less than or equal than x1, or x2 is greater than or less than or equal than x1 are meaningful. Most financial and economic variables belong to this category. Thus, it is a meaningful to ask how big in this year's GDP stock return compared with the previous year GDP, or you can say that stock return variable. Interval scale. The interval scale is a quantitative measure scale where there is order. The difference between the two variables is meaningful and equal, and the presence of 0 is arbitrary. It means variable that exists along a common scale at equal interval. The measures used to calculate the distance between the variables are highly reliable. The interval scale measures like we have the gender, location, political parties, pets, so on. These type of variables can be measured with the help of interval scale. Ordinal scale. Ordinal scale is the second level of measurement that reports the ranking and ordering of data without actually establishing the degree of variation between them. Ordinal level of measurement is the second of the fourth measurement scale. Ordinal scale indicate order, or ordinal data is a quantitative data which have a naturally occurring orders, and the differencing is unknown. It can be named, grouped, and also ranked. In a survey question that asks us to rate an item, like we can say that 1 to 10 scale, here we have 10 being the best, and this implies that 10 is better than 9 and 9 is better than 8 and 8 is better than 7, so on. So this represents the ordinal scale. Here we have the nominal scale. Nominal scale is a scale of measurement used to assign events or objects into discrete categories. If we assign individual item to name category that do not have an implicit or natural value or order, that is, we have some currency notes, accounting of persons. It is a account that cannot be made more precise. Typically, it involves integers. For instance, the number of children in your family is a discrete data because you are counting the individual as a whole entity. Like you cannot count we have kids here in our house, that 2.5 kids and 1.3 pets or 1.5 buffaloes in our farm. So nominal scale is a discrete scale which give you exact value in the form of number. So here we have discussed the measurement scales for the variable. You can say that the measurement of the variable with different scales. So see you with another video. Ciao.